Hello everyone, it's Callum from Cagefront here. Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome to the channel. We have UFC 312, Dricus Du Plessis versus America's sweetheart, Sean Strickland, taking place in Sydney in Qudos Bank Arena here in Australia, and I'm going to be going to this event, and I'm definitely keen for it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the best card on paper. It's definitely pretty piss poor for a pay-per-view, honestly. Thanks, Australian tax. That's the problem. But on paper, it doesn't look great in terms of quality names, don't get me wrong, but stylistically and analytically, from what I've gone through and what we will go through in the predictions of this video, predicting and breaking down every single fight on this card and also analyzing the best moments, I reckon this card's actually going to deliver. I think it's going to be one of the highest rates of finishes amongst pay-per-view cards this year. That's what I'm calling now. So without further ado, let's get into the first fight of HyunSung Park versus Nyamjargal Tumendemberel. Now, I've definitely learned that name, and it is a mission to learn, but it's ultimately worth it because I think this fight honestly will deliver on this card to kick it off. Now, both of these guys, analytically, they strike at pretty similar clips. They're both pretty much as accurate as each other, and they both almost have 3 submission attempts a fight each. So whether it's on the feet, on the ground, they are both pretty similar in those departments offensively. Now, looking at Park, he has looked very impressive in his career so far. Obviously, he's gone undefeated, as you can see on the screen, 9-0, and he has literally won all of those fights except for one by finish. 4-0 with KO, 4-0 with sub. So he's definitely well-rounded, but he trains mainly out of Tiger Muay Thai. So his striking has definitely really developed over the years, and we know that his KO power is there, but he really gets those KO finishes from the utilization of his low leg kicks, utilizing those leg kicks to set up the hands. That's how he gets most of those KOs through. And when he is on the feet, he's very good at stringing combinations together by switching stance. He's very good at like throwing a 2 and then using the rear hook off the stance switch to then catch the opposition out. That's what he's done very well from the clips that I've seen. Now, looking at Nyamjargal, he is more so of a ground game artist, more so specifically because of the wrestling he has. He wrestles, honestly, his takedowns like almost double the amount of takedowns that Park has in his career in terms of just the average per fight. Now, when we look at their competition, both of them haven't fought the most amazing competition overall, and Nyamjargal's first UFC fight was a split decision loss to Carlos Hernandez, which showed he had power, but he had poor defense overall, especially off of his back. And when we look at his gas tank, his output as well does wane a bit throughout that 3rd round from what we saw in the Hernandez fight. But yes, strike defense overall and mainly ground-based defense isn't that fantastic for him. Now, both of them do have power, and Nyamjargal, he is just a bit of a bigger fighter. He's more kind of filled out when you look at him when they're fighting, but Park, he is ultimately just better with the striking, and it really is going to depend. This fight really is going to depend on if Nyamjargal can hold Park down without getting submitted, because he's most likely going to get outworked on the feet. I think Park is just strings the combinations together. He is an orthodox-based fighter, but he is very good at switching stance and catching fighters with that lead to then rear hook. He's very good at that, and Nyamjargal, from what I've seen of him defensively, he's someone that definitely could get caught. Now, Nyamjargal, I think that he can get Park down, but I don't think it's going to be enough to the point where he can just pull away the win from it. I don't think he's going to be able to hold him down for more than half the fight, and he's not going to be able to outland him on the feet. But Nyamjargal is definitely durable. He's never been taken out by finish at all. I mean, he's got 5 submissions as well, so he is a pretty tricky fighter to actually submit. But when he's on his back, he's an easier fighter to get ground and pound off on, and that's a bit of an issue, especially if Park is looking to utilize those takedowns and get some ground and pound in there. And ultimately, I do believe whether it's on the ground, he's getting that ground and pound, or just staying on the feet, unless Nyamjargal can hold him the whole entire fight, I've got to take Park by decision win here. I think unless Nyamjargal really just gets through that first round and just swallows him in that first round, takes him down, is able to hold him or just push him against the cage and clinch, could possibly take that first round, but I'm more so leaning towards a 30-27 for HyunSung Park in this one to extend his undefeated record to 10-0. Now moving on to Anshul Jubli versus Quillan Salkilld. Now the Indian superstar, the spearhead, the Prince of India, Anshul Jubli, we have him back. And honestly, I know this guy is a big meme in the MMA community, but honestly, I think he's pretty underrated. I actually do rate him as a fighter, and I think he just gets a lot of shit just because he has a large following in comparison to a lot of fighters that are actually his skill level, and he just lost his last fight. He was winning the first 2 rounds and then froze and then got taken out in that 3rd round. He just wasn't able to do anything, and I think that's where people are just picking up and giving him a lot of shit, because India obviously has a huge amount of weight on Anshul Jubli as their spearhead, because he's like the only Indian fighter in the UFC from what I've seen, aside from Pooja Tomar in the women's division. There's literally no one else, unless there is, and you can remind me in the comments. But yeah, this guy's got a lot of weight on his shoulders for his country. So yeah, he's on the taller side for lightweight at 6 foot. But then we look at Salkilld and he's 6 foot, but he's got a 6-inch reach advantage. So this guy is like just behind like Jalen Turner and like Joel Alvarez at 75 inches of reach. So he has got that as a weapon. But the thing I don't like is that he doesn't utilize the reach. Well, from what I've seen in the fights that he has fought, he loves using like looping based hooks. He doesn't use straight strikes, which jabs, twos, even teeps, anything would be fantastic with that reach. But from what I've seen, he just doesn't really utilize them. He just kind of gets more so into a dogfight because his striking, when it comes to his hands, isn't the most technical. Now, when it comes to the striking with his legs, it's pretty good. He's got good leg kicks, good body kicks, he's got good knees up the middle. But yeah, the hooks, he just loops and wings them from what I've seen. Now, he has landed some straight strikes in the Dana White's Contender Series fight he had against Young, but he used it very sparingly for the reason I have no idea why. He should have used that a lot more. But I will say he's got good wrestling transitions. When he is on the ground, he can secure it on the ground. But even when he was fighting Young, he was shaken off a few times very easily in that fight. And Young isn't like a fantastic fighter. Anshul Jubli is better than Young. So that's where I looked at that and I wasn't too confident, because when we look at Jubli, this guy has a higher output on the feet. He is very, very clean with his 1-2s. In contrast, he is very good, especially to the body. Has a very nice 2 to the body. He has good foot sweeps to get top control on the ground, and his transitions are very good as well. His fight against Viacheslav, he absolutely swallowed him the whole entire fight and nullified the guy's power. So Anshul Jubli, he has more depth to his game from what I've seen overall. And even though his 0 got taken by, Mike Breeden, I just think he is a decent fighter, very decent fighter. And he is $4.20. My God. I mean, yeah, I'm taking him by a decision win here. I've just seen more impressive qualities when it comes to both the ground game and on the feet. He's got consistent top control. He's got a variety of striking as well. And yeah, this is good value for an underdog pick, I believe. I think this can go to a decision. Salkilld, if he really just utilizes those straight strikes, utilizes that reach, and is able to find the mark on Jubli, then he can definitely win this, of course. But yeah, I don't know where this much heat is coming from on Salkilld. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I think it could be a prime opportunity to take a very heavy underdog in this fight for Jubli to snatch a decision, utilizing the straight strikes, outstriking Salkilld, getting the timing, and also if it comes to the ground, I'm honestly borderline more confident that Jubli is going to be able to out-control him and out-transition him on the ground anyway. So I'm taking the Prince of India, Anshul Jubli. Now moving up the card, we have Kevin Jousset versus Jonathan Micallef. Now, Jonathan, he is definitely more so a talented clinch and ground game artist. Now, when he fought Adu on Dana White's Contender Series, he slid in the triangle choke pretty much seamlessly. He's very dangerous on the ground overall, but I don't think that this is the right debut fight for him. I mean, this as a matchup stylistically is not good because his striking pedigree is definitely not on the same level as Kevin Jousset. Jousset is definitely like a solid top 20 fighter who's branching on the top 15. I definitely believe that Kevin Jousset is that good because he's literally just lost against like Bryan Battle, and that's pretty much it. And Bryan Battle is a top 15 worthy fighter for sure. Now, the biggest issue I see with Micallef more so as a ground game artist is him trying to get it to the ground, because first and foremost, Jousset has a judo base. That's what he's grown up with, and then he's a kickboxer second. So trying to get a guy that is very good with his hips is going to be very difficult to get to the ground. So I'm very confident in picking Kevin Jousset in this fight, and I think he's going to be able to pick Micallef apart in round one. I think he's going to deny the takedowns, he's going to work the body, chew up the legs, break him down, and then I think he's going to TKO him in the second round. I mean, he's got almost double the strike accuracy, has better combinations and footwork, and can keep the pace very well while forward pressuring, or whether he's on the back foot with counter striking. Kevin Jousset needs an opponent like a Bryan Battle, and this ain't a Bryan Battle. I am very, very confident that Kevin Jousset is going to get Micallef out of there. Moving up the card to Rongzhu versus Kody Steele. Now, Rongzhu, he has a wealth of experience. I mean, he is 24 years old and he has 31 fights, which is absolutely nuts, and he is entertaining. He sets a very high pace. He hits at 5.5 significant strikes per minute and has good timing on his takedowns as well, and he's got clean striking with very evident KO power. You can see on the screen he's 15-1 with KOs, and the guy trains out of American Top Team as well, so they can really round out his game especially when it comes to the wrestling base as well. And this guy was on a clear 4-fight win streak. Like, he was dominating until he lost by doctor stoppage to Chris Padilla, which was a fair stoppage because Chris Padilla, he's looked fantastic. He's been an underdog like almost every time, and the guy landed a beautiful elbow on Rongzhu, which basically blinded him. So yeah, that's a fair enough. But Rongzhu, I mean, he didn't get like taken out. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I mean, he's a very good, clean kickboxer as well. He is dangerous. Now, when we look at Kody Steele, he's more of an unknown. He's good with his striking, but I will say, aside from him being good at his striking and he has like the physical presence and him being undefeated, he's just not as good on the feet. I mean, he's not as tight and clean with the striking. He's got the power, but he leaves himself vulnerable without a doubt. I mean, he keeps his head on the center line for a long time in the exchanges. And when you go against a guy like Rongzhu, who has better combinations, is ultimately, honestly, from proof in the pudding, he's more powerful as well and has an offensive ground game that we haven't seen from Kody Steele. If he needs to get out the back door, Rongzhu's going to be able to handle him there. I mean, just the pedigree and caliber of Rongzhu's just resume, even just that, is going to give him a clean win here. And honestly, I believe that just with everything I've said, yeah, Rongzhu is going to be able to get this one done. I think possibly in the second round, because Kody Steele, he is crazy in the first round for sure. He loves the fast pace. I mean, both of these guys do love a very fast pace, but I believe this could go into the second round, just depending on which way it sways, because whoever's got the more forward pressure here is going to be winning this fight. Now, obviously, this could either mean that both of them collide or both of them back off to really try and get their reads to get the perfect point to get in and go forward pressure. Because if they get countered and get put on the back foot, the person that is pushing forward is going to have that much of a likely edge of taking the other one out. So I'm looking at this honestly probably right at the start of the second round. Rongzhu takes Kody Steele out. I think he hurts him at the end of the first round, but then takes him out at the start of the second round. Moving up the card to Aleksandre Topuria versus Colby Thicknesse. Now, this card is not amazing overall, and this just gives more reason as to why this should have been put on the main card. And it's more so not because of the fighters, it's the elephant in the room. We've got Volkanovski in Colby Thicknesse's corner, and then we've got Ilia Topuria in the respective corner of his brother, which has never been seen before, at least from what I've seen, and I'm pretty sure the commentary team as well has said that too. I mean, it's never been seen before, so it's going to be very fascinating to see, and there's going to be a lot on the line. And I mean, this is going to give it the right push to set up Ilia and Volk 2 for the rematch. And I think that is going to happen at UFC 314, which I did mention in predicting all of the pay-per-view main events for the entire year. I'll leave that in the description below. But looking back at Aleksandre and Colby, I mean, a lot of Aussies that enjoy the MMA scene would especially like this fight on the main card, because I mean, the real hole for everyone else is that no one really knows who Colby Thicknesse is. I mean, he's really unknown to everyone, but on the regional scene in Australia, I'm definitely super keen to see him. I mean, a lot of people know who he is from Eternal and all the other organizations he's been in, but can he win it? That's the thing. I mean, he's got very fast movement, but I'm gonna say, I mean, he is not the best technically with his striking, especially at range, because he was getting pieced up in his last fight, especially just all on the feet. I mean, just trying spinny stuff and everything against Malunas, and he was getting pieced up. It wasn't good, and then he had to resort to the ground game, which is good because he has a very good ground game. He's a BJJ black belt, and he's very, very dangerous with his transitions, good at taking the back, and that's where he's got those 2 rear naked chokes on his record. And with his BJJ base being able to compete with Aleksandre, I believe, on the ground, I think that they are going to be pretty stalemated there. The disparity on the feet is just clear, because Aleksandre, I mean, he's riding a 3-fight first round KO streak, coming off his 1 KO loss before that, which was 10 years ago. He had a 6-year layoff, so he lost it in 2015, and he was performing actually pretty well in that fight. He almost got an armbar finish, but then he basically laid off, retired in 2015, and then started again in 2021, and he's had 3 KOs since then. So he's not the most active guy, but he's looking very well rounded. He's got a great ability to offensively transition on the ground and to find ground and pound opportunities, more so than his brother Ilia, who really hunts those submissions. I mean, you look at an opportunity in his last fight, he got Segas in a crucifix and just started beating the living shit out of him and got that win by the KO TKO in the first round. And not only that, I mean, you look at Ilia, this guy as well, very strong with the wrestling, and honestly, he's, yeah, pretty well rounded, as a Topuria would be. The best way for Colby to beat this guy that is so well rounded is to catch him out when he is transitioning on the ground, and he's gonna need to either get Topuria's back or get Topuria on his back. That is the best way. But with the wrestling base that Topuria has and the lower center of gravity as well, I just see much clearer paths to victory for Aleksandre in this fight. And with the striking disparity that's there, I mean, love Colby Thicknesse, but I think Topuria is going to get the KO TKO in the first or second round. He loads on that right hand, and I think with Colby Thicknesse and what I've seen from his strike defense as well, I think Topuria is going to be able to just clock him with a right hand after a jab, or he's just going to be able to time it after a leg kick or something. He's going to be able to time that right hand, drop him, and then I believe he's going to be able to ground and pound him out in the first or the second round. Moving up the card to Bruna Brasil versus Cong Wang. Now, as much as I love Bruna Brasil and the Fighting Nerds, and even more so how much of a joke Cong Wang made of herself against a Brazilian that she underestimated, and she does not want to underestimate another Brazilian, especially Bruna Brasil, I just don't see the same thing happening here. I do want Bruna Brasil to win, but with Wang needing to get the momentum back after being embarrassed like that, and now she knows that she's not invincible, I think she's going to be pretty dialed in this fight. But I don't think it's going to be that easy, because when we look at Bruna Brasil, she's improved very well. I mean, she took out Molly McCann with very nice body shots and utilized her range and distance management very well. But at that range that she works so well at, Wang is just a better striker. I mean, for Bruna to win this, she's going to need to rip the body, circle on the outside to avoid those flurries that Wang definitely has, and Bruna needs to time good clinch positions to just blast knees, as honestly, they are really, really good for her because she's going up against Wang, who is a southpaw, and those knees are open when she is in a traditional orthodox stance. So if she can time those, then it's looking very good for Bruna, but that is a tall order to ask for. I mean, she is more accurate on the feet, but that's in MMA, because MMA, you know, with the statistics we have, that doesn't account for the Muay Thai and kickboxing pedigree and career that Wang has had. I mean, I see her being able to just cut down the kickboxing range and keep this at boxing range. And if this is a boxing range, Bruna Brasil is going to have a very tough time. Now, with no showboating, Wang should get this done. But hopefully, if there is showboating, Bruna flicks a clean head kick and knocks her out. But aside, realistically, I want Bruna to win, but I'm taking Wang by a second round TKO. I think she lands a very clean hook up top in that boxing range, and then I think she just follows down for some ground and pound. And I think she leads up to that with some investment into Bruna Brasil's body, cutting off that kickboxing range. I just think that Wang has the tools to suffocate Bruna Brasil in this fight. But Wang is going to have to make sure that she doesn't underestimate her and sticks with that boxing, because otherwise Bruna Brasil could definitely find the shot. Moving up the card to Viacheslav Borshev versus Tom Nolan. So Viacheslav Borshev, this guy, I really like this guy. I mean, he's put on some super entertaining fights like his one against Nazim Sadikov, and very fun ones that are against his own will, like when he fought Chase Hooper, which he would rather forget, but I don't see him wanting to forget this fight, because I think that he gets Tom Nolan out of there in this one. I think that Nolan, looking at him, he's only had one loss against Nicholas Motta, but then he beat Victor Martinez and Alex Reyes, who honestly just aren't great opposition, especially in comparison to who Borshev has fought, win or lose. And the biggest problem by far is stylistically between these two. You mix Borshev's forward pressure kickboxing pedigree, the kickboxing pedigree that he has that is better than Tom Nolan's, and you mix that with the very poor head movement of Tom Nolan, and that is going to lead to a disaster class of a KO for Borshev to get this over Tom Nolan. I mean, Nolan, the guy, he has good power, he gets a lot of wind up, he is a very tall lightweight at 6'3", but Borshev, he's very good at slipping, he's very good at defending, he's very good at getting on the inside, he's good at counter striking, he is just a better striker. Tom Nolan has no ground game. Borshev has been traumatized by the ground game, so I assume that he's been training that to the point where he's going to be better than Tom Nolan there anyway. But yeah, Borshev, the better striker, simple math here. I think Borshev is just going to be able to honestly just find better combinations on the feet. He is good at finding combinations while forward pressuring. Tom Nolan on the back foot isn't great, but the head movement in addition to that is just a recipe for a KO, and I believe it's probably going to happen at the end of the first round or early in the second round of this fight. Now, moving up to our feature prelim, we have Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. Now, honestly, this is a very tough matchup for both of them. Both of them have fucking brutal leg kicks. I mean, Santos, when he fought Yizar in his last fight, just ripped his legs to pieces in that fight and just bullied him. And then Jack Jenkins has just casually broken like 5 of his opponent's legs. So this, when it comes to breaking down bodies, I mean, these guys are going to be extremely sore or just unconscious. So when we look at them stylistically, Santos, he has very good head movement. He's not like the most powerful overall on the feet, but he's so accurate. He's just accurate and fast that he just pieces things together so well and drops his opponents. But he doesn't have that necessarily like that one hit KO power. But the speed, the accuracy with the Muay Thai base he does have, that he can utilize through his stance switching as well. The guy is a nightmare to go up against. I mean, he has very nice right hook slips, and he is very, very dangerous with the teeps, with the knees, with the elbows. He's just got a very, very good Muay Thai base that he can fight out of both stances. And he is slightly more accurate than Jack Jenkins as well. Now, they're both fought quality opposition. I mean, Jenkins has fought Chepe Mariscal, who's looking great at the moment, and he's fought Jamal Emmers too, who is a KO artist, very dangerous. And then Santos, he has fought against David Onama and Lerone Murphy. So Santos, he's had the better experience out of the two. Obviously, he's lost to both of them, but I mean, they're literally the only losses that he has. Aside from those two losses, who are very good opponents, he ain't losing. And when it comes to this fight, I mean, I love Jack. I do love him, and there's definitely a strong possibility he can win this fight. But Gabriel Santos, with the Muay Thai and the ability that he has on the feet, with the reach advantage as well, and the ground game too, he's 4-0 with submissions. He's good at hunting rear naked chokes. Man, it's a tough out. It is definitely a tough out. Now, Jack Jenkins, I mean, the Mariscal loss that he had at UFC 293, it killed me when I was there, but it's a killer for him. I mean, he was riding a 9-fight win streak and was doing extremely well up until, like, in that fight, he was doing extremely well up until his elbow dislocated. It's just, it's a freak thing, but he had to take time off, and now he's gone and, you know, won against a 4-week notice Herbert Burns in his last fight at 305, who is just not a valid win comparably. But, you know, he does have, like, Jenkins does have the kicks, obviously, and he's got very nice lead hooks to the body. He just crippled Burns with that, but again, you can't. Burns and Santos, completely different fighters. Santos is just so much better. And Jack, when he's forward pressuring, he mixes his combinations together very well. And as I said at the start, this is a battle of who can dismantle the legs and the body the quickest, who can just dismantle the body. But I honestly got to say that Santos, I think that he should be the favorite here. He's just got more tools on the feet. He's got the reach. He's got the speed as well, and the BJJ game to back it up too. And that's where I see Santos being able to get like a late second round or third round based submission after just dismantling Jenkins over time. They're both going to be sore as shit, but Santos, I believe with the tools that he does have, I mean, the reach advantage, he's just going to be able to land a bit more. And I think to the point, he's going to be able to slit one of Jenkins's shots in just a weary kind of exchange that they have. He's going to land a very clean right hook. He's going to hunt Jenkins to the ground. I think Jenkins is going to honestly probably drop, and then Santos is going to go to the ground. And I think that Santos is going to sink in his 5th rear naked choke after he hurts Jenkins, and he's going to get this one done. And look, I love Jenkins. I'm rooting for him to win this, and he's got the ability to get it done, like, you know, chewing up the legs and then stringing up the combinations to then cut down the explosiveness of Santos and then finish him. But I mean, the tools that Santos has, and the opponents that he's lost against, and yeah, he just, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the ground, the guy is just so dangerous. So I got to take him by that rear naked choke win in this one. Moving up the card to Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado. Now, Francisco Prado, this guy, I mean, he's definitely a fun fighter. He's super fucking durable thanks to that showing against bloody Daniel Zellhuber. Blood all over his face, and he was not dropping for shit. And the guy is just so fun because with the durability, obviously, but he's got a very high output. And yeah, he's just fun. He just really wants to go. But he still needs the time to learn. I mean, he's only 22 years old, and he's going against a now veteran in Jake Matthews, who is very difficult to find the killer shot against. And Jake Matthews looked fantastic against both Michael Morales and Phil Rowe, especially Michael Morales as like that guy's like ready to be a top 10, top 5 fighter for sure. I mean, the quality of opposition there. Daniel Zellhuber is great, but aside from that, Jake Matthews has fought a lot of good opposition, a lot of dangerous opposition that are just more dangerous than Prado realistically. Now, looking at Prado's way of getting this done is Prado fashion, is a guy going absolutely berserk and clipping him with a random overhand or a hook or something, or dropping him so badly and then finding a submission, because he does have a diverse range of submissions. He's 6-0 with submissions and 6-0 with KO TKOs. And I mean, he's got the guillotines, he's got rear naked chokes, he's hit an arm bar at one point as well. So he's definitely got the tools. But Matthews, I mean, he is looking very good, just specifically in this matchup and recently anyway. I mean, he's got 4 inches of reach as an advantage, and more importantly, he's got 5 inches of leg reach and advantage. which is just going to be so clutch in this fight because he's good with teeps, he's good with the straight shots, very nice jab, he's got good movement on the outside, and like most Aussies, he utilizes very, very good leg kicks as well, which is going to be best against Prado to slow him down when he flurries, just chew up that front leg. And on top of all that, Jake Matthews, when he's getting pressured back, he's got very, very nice counter striking too. So ultimately, I could see Prado coming out guns a-blazing and hurting Matthews in the first round and then, you know, finishing him. But I think that Prado honestly could do that in the first round anyway. But I see Matthews surviving, settling into the fight through the second and third round, utilizing the jab, utilizing the counter striking, chopping down the lead leg, finding the check hooks as well, and outpointing Prado to a 29-28 decision in this fight. Moving up to Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato. Now, I cannot wait to see the Bendigo boy back in action, Jimmy Crute. I was originally born there, and I'm not there anymore, but Jimmy Crute, I mean, seeing this guy come out of like the hometown slash city that I came from, it's pretty cool to see that there's someone actually just from that little place that is fighting. I mean, at one point is in the top 15, which is, you know, absolutely incredible. And Jimmy Crute, this guy has battled with injuries. He's battled a lot with his mentality. He's been out for almost 2 years and he was really, really close to retiring. He basically kind of did for a bit and then kind of went back into it. And look, I'm hoping the time away has really served him well and that he's been able to just really get back in focus, because Jimmy Crute is talented. He is a talented fighter. When he has his day, I mean, he was a top ranked fighter for a reason. I mean, he was in the top 15 at one point for a reason. And look, and nowadays at this point, I mean, he's lost 3 of his last fights and then the 4th one was a draw. He really needs to win here. And I honestly hope he can prove me wrong, because I do believe that Bellato is going to be able to get this one done. I just can't base it off like Jimmy Crute. If he is like active and he has got the skill set in place, he is better than Bellato, I believe. But when we take in the tax of Jimmy Crute being out for 2 years, he's had the mental struggles as well. It's a hard one to see, because when we look at basing it off that actual skill set, I'm definitely there for Crute, but mentality wise, it really hinders my choice in choosing him here, because we look at Bellato, he, in polar opposite, has been very active. He's on a 4-fight win streak with 3 of those being KOs, and look, he fights upright, so he doesn't have a heap of movement in his game, and he's definitely susceptible to being caught. So Jimmy Crute definitely has a chance in this fight, but he loves to walk his opponents down and just find hooks against the cage, just absolutely suffocate them against the cage. Now, ultimately, stylistically in this matchup, someone is going to crash and burn very hard, because Jimmy Crute, he's a guy that does string good striking combinations together, lower output combinations, but he makes them count, but he doesn't have the best head movement. And then Bellato's, from what I've seen, is basically non-fucking existent. So, and both of them don't really exercise strong ground games. And we've got Jimmy Crute, who more so would be more on the wrestling side. If I was to choose one of them to shoot a takedown, it'd be Crute. But then we've got Bellato as well, who's 4-0 with submissions. So it's definitely tricky there as to what avenue they want to go down and whether there's going to be a chance to do so, because Bellato, forward pressure machine, shitty head movement, and, you know, Jimmy Crute has got power in his hands as well. So someone, yeah, I think someone's gonna die in this fight, and I'm praying it's not Crute, but I got to go with Bellato. It's nothing against Crute, of course, but Bellato, he is the more active. He's got the momentum. You know, he's coming off a crazy win against the Ukrainian bloke. What's his name? Against Ihor Peteri. I finally got the name. But looking at that layoff, I mean, Jimmy Crute, 2 years out, basically. He's got the mental doubts there. And Bellato, he is prime and ready to get the KO TKO win. And dear Lord, I hope Jimmy Crute proves me wrong. Destroy my multis. I don't care. I just want to see this guy absolutely win. Please. Moving up the card to Justin Tafa versus Talison Teixeira. Now this is a Goliath versus Goliath matchup, with Teixeira having the height and Tafa being the width. So It's gonna be pretty interesting because we got Taliesin as the favorite, and that's clearly based on the first round finishes, him being undefeated, and of course being an absolute fucking unit at 6'7" with a 9-inch reach advantage over Justin Tafa. But there are two things that I really don't like about Taliesin. One is the experience in comparison to Tafa, and most of all, number two, is the piss poor head movement. He was getting tagged a lot against Lopez on Dana White's Contender Series in that fight, and he's got this confidence about him that it just seems like, yeah, I can take your shots. Like, I can do it. It's fine. But the opposition that he fought was just gassing himself out, just throwing absolutely everything, the kitchen sink at him. And Teixeira, don't get me wrong, he was eating them, but the strikes weren't really concentrated. They weren't finding a specific mark. Whereas Tafa, who's a guy that's got good kickboxing background, good boxing based background, who has a higher strike accuracy than Teixeira as well, and who is used to fighting guys that are a lot taller than him and throwing overhands and flicking their chins off. I think that Justin Tafa is going to be able to get this one done, because if you put Tafa in that Dana White's Contender Series fight in place of that other dude and Taliesin fought the way he did, Tafa is knocking him out. I am saying that confidently now, because if Allison hasn't improved the strike defense, then it just doesn't matter with the reach. I mean, the distance management and the strike accuracy that Tafa does have is going to be able to get this one done. I mean, I believe that it's going to be in the first round, and I believe it's going to come off a nice, big, meaty overhand right to that chin in the first round, dropping him and then KOing him via ground and pound. I think Taliesin, I have nothing against him, but it's just the fact of he has this just vibe about him, this persona, this mannerism where he's got his hands down. He see like the people are clipping him, and granted his chin's held up. He's never been finished, but you know, the competition gets steeper, and Justin Tafa isn't like the best kind of fighter or anything, but against that specifically, Tafa can do a shitload of damage. And yeah, if Teixeira's got those hands down and that chin is perfectly placed for that height difference, Tafa can sleep this guy, and I think that he will. Moving up to our co-main event and the strawweight championship between Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. Now, this is obviously the biggest moment of Tatiana Suarez's career, which is emphasized by her medical history, unfortunately, because not many people thought that she would, you know, get close to a title shot. Not because she's not skilled, it's just because her body would just not let her. I mean, she's had to pull out of a lot of fights. I mean, she's had to take a lot of time off. Now, her finally reaching this point where she gets to fight for a title, you know, congratulations to her. And we know that she is going to be hungry. And there is potential that Weili doesn't have the drive to defend with everything that she has. And that is what led to her KO loss against Rose Namajunas, because she did lose that drive. So there's always that mentality factor there for Weili. But regardless, she's the one that has been consistent. Weili has almost tripled the experience. She's a switch stance striker with a striking base with 11 KOs. She's never been submitted. She's got 8 submissions to her name. So on paper, this is definitely not easy for Tatiana Suarez. And an interesting point for Tatiana statistically is that she's very active with the takedown. She almost hits like 7 a fight, which you would, you know, realize, but she is extremely accurate on the feet. She's got a 71% strike accuracy, and usually you have around that when you're having like a low output, around 2 to 3 strikes, max like 3 strikes, which is like your MVP, who's like more of a sniper. But 71% accuracy with an output of 4 strikes per minute. So she is actually good with the striking. Now that sounds great, you know, without a doubt statistically, but the problem that is skewed within those stats is that those are from her in 2019 and earlier, more so. And Weili, since that point in time, I mean, she has just grown leaps and bounds, and she is the natural striker there. Look, it is a close fight, but I'm going to say that it strongly plays out with Tatiana being able to outmuscle Weili in the first round. Weili will then come back with the striking, and improve her takedown defense in the second round, because Tatiana will just outmuscle her and control her in the first round. Weili, striking, she is better. She'll just land more with the boxing, and we'll learn from the Nyamjargal fight to just not use kicks, because if she's using kicks, Suarez will win this fight. I'm saying it now, she will, because she will just take every opportunity to snatch a leg, just get the single and absolutely toss her, because Weili is strong when she is in control, but Suarez, if she's in control, she is going to be able to get Weili to the ground. Now, looking into the third round, Suarez, I believe if Weili starts getting off with the boxing in the second round, Suarez is going to force the takedowns even harder in the third round and work extremely hard to keep Weili on the ground, because she's not liking what happened in the second round with the boxing. And then that's where the championship experience comes in. So we've had the 3 rounds. I believe by the 4th round, Tatiana will be up 2-1. She's taken round 1 and round 3. But then the 4th and 5th round, I think Weili continues to utilize that pure boxing approach. She works the body of Tatiana, slowing her down. I mean, Tatiana's never fought 5 rounds. Slows her down to the point where her explosive step, you know, her penetrating step to get Weili to the ground, is just not as effective. And Weili, this is all while Weili is pumping her to the body, pumping her to the face. That's where I believe that Weili is going to defend her title for a 48-47 decision. Now, if it's not this, then I believe that Tatiana will be able to take a win in the first round by a choke, like a guillotine or a rear naked choke while they are dry, just utilizing that pure strength to just overwhelm Weili. There's definitely a possibility there. And it's a very close fight. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's a split decision, but if it's a split decision, I'm not going to be surprised if they just push it Suarez's way, just with the storyline and everything, freshening up the division as well. And, you know, Zhang Weili being 35 years old now, it just would not surprise me. But yeah, I believe in Weili. I believe in the experience that she's had in the time that Tatiana has been off, and that's just going to pay dividends with that pure striking, that takedown defense as well, and even her Weili's ability on the ground. It's not going to be a cakewalk for Suarez just being able to control her for 5 rounds, especially with Suarez never going 5 rounds. So Weili, yeah, she's getting this one done by 48-47 decision. Now, moving up to the main event, we have the newly included one of the 4 African horsemen, Dricus Du Plessis, versus America's sweetheart, Sean Strickland. And if I thought the bloody co-main event was fucking hard enough to pick, man, this rematch is just not easy to predict. I mean, we know how these guys match up. They've fought for 25 minutes, but will anything change from that? Let's look at the fights that they've had since. We've got DDP, who has fought Israel Adesanya, which he was losing that fight up until he got a nice like 3-piece combination and just dragged Izzy to the ground and took him out by a rear naked choke. And then we got Strickland, who had dominantly beaten a very shy, gun-shy Paulo Costa. So from this, I don't see much difference or change for Sean, except the fact that he was pressuring a lot heavier in that Costa fight. Found a new kind of confidence within that, maybe because Dricus and Costa aren't the same. But when we look at Dricus, most identifiable thing is that the takedown threat, he's looking a lot more comfortable in utilizing it. And with that takedown threat, that is what I believe is going to be crucial in this fight. Because if Dricus doesn't take chances or mix up his game, he will lose this fight. Strickland will simply outstrike him. Well, not simply, but he will outstrike him without a doubt. I mean, just like the first fight. But that being said, Strickland needs more forward pressure and to land more power shots to sway the judges. So they both ultimately do have to take more risks. But what makes this a betting nightmare is that it can have multiple different outcomes dependent on the pace they actually put on individually and what game plan they come out with. Because we look at Dricus, he could just go absolutely crazy from start to finish, throwing flurries everywhere on the feet, and then Strickland could counter him and possibly towards the end of the fight look at taking Dricus down, or Dricus could just go absolutely AWOL and clip Strickland and take him out. Or if Strickland pressures a heap more like he did against Paulo Costa, he could get caught at close range when his style just doesn't want him to be in that close range. And then I mean, we could even have a Dricus just start throwing wildly and then Strickland could just KO him, or it could be the other way around. I mean, there's so many variables here, just adjusting from the first fight. So realistically, from an analytical perspective, there isn't really a proper wrong answer as to what outcome it could be. Although I do highly doubt Sean Strickland is going to submit Dricus. But aside from that, I do believe that Dricus will find a submission finish here. He's going to take a much more heavier wrestling based approach in this fight. He knows point for point he is not beating Strickland without level changing. He's not beating him on the feet. He just can't outwork and fight against Strickland's jab. That's just too difficult, especially with his style. But he's better at mixing up his game than Strickland overall, and swamping Strickland and making himself a wet blanket and landing low pot shots, like ground and pound pot shots, to just frustrate Strickland is definitely the way to go, because just trying to KO Strickland on the feet is very difficult unless you land an absolute Hail Mary shot, unless you're like Alex Pereira, which Dricus isn't. He's just not technical enough. But when it comes to the ground game, I mean, we've never seen Strickland be held, aside from fighting Kamaru Usman at welterweight, but Kamaru Usman doesn't have the submission threat. If Dricus Du Plessis can replicate that to an extent, take Strickland down, frustrate him to the point where he's constantly framing, constantly pushing up against the fence, there's definitely an opportunity that could present itself that Dricus could take and find that rear naked choke finish. I believe that he could. I mean, especially if Strickland does frame up off that cage and just wants to get back up. Because Dricus and Strickland on the ground, Strickland, realistically, he's not winning a fight on the ground if he's going against Dricus Du Plessis, because he's not going to submit him and he's going to have to out wrestle him, and Dricus is stronger than Strickland. So I do believe that Dricus is going to be able to find this win here. He's similar way to the way he beat Izzy, and look, he knows striking is not going to be the smartest route overall if he's learned anything from that first fight. But that being said, I mean, if he does keep it on the feet like the first fight, I think Strickland will take the fight on points, which I do believe that Strickland won the first fight 48-47, but with the ground game depth, I believe DDP can ride out to the second or the third round, find that opening from an error from Strickland trying to get back up, sink in the choke and finish him and retain his title. And let's see Dricus versus Khamzat Chimaev. Dear Lord, please. Now, moving on to the fight card awards and kicking it off with fight of the night, I got to give it to Rongzhu versus Kody Steele, because these guys stylistically are just kind of nuts. I mean, they're both kind of Tasmanian devils, very fast paced, very good striking. I mean, Kody Steele, he's a guy that does not necessarily have too much credibility when it comes to his strike defense, and Rongzhu, he's a guy that is more technical on the feet overall. I think it's going to be great back and forth up until the point where Rongzhu just takes him out, but up until that point, I'm 100% there for it. Now, looking at performance of the night, I got to give it to Viacheslav Borshev. I think that this is a great time for him to get an entertaining win, because I like Tom Nolan 100%, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like the strike defense for him, the lack of head movement, strike defense, that con going against Viacheslav Borshev, who has a kickboxing base and has done it his whole life, yeah, I'm not liking that. I think that performance is going to be there for him. I think he's going to be able to really find the mark in the first round, just really put Tom Nolan in danger, and then finish him late first or early second round. Now, looking at fighter to watch, gotta give it to Ilia Topuria's younger brother, Aleksandre Topuria. I think that this guy, he's gonna perform. Like, I love Thicknesse, but I just don't think that the striking is just going to match up to par with Topuria's. The disparity, the contrast there is just a bit too much. I think Topuria, if he can, I mean, keep it on the feet as well, because if he's seen Colby's highlights from the ground game, he is slick, and that is giving, Topuria would just be giving Colby the best opportunity to take him out, because I don't believe that Colby is going to be able to just actually force a takedown on Topuria. Topuria is going to have to take him down, and then Colby finds an opportunity to submit him. But yeah, Topuria, looking at him, I don't think he'll obviously be as good as Ilia. That's like borderline impossible feat at this point, and he's 29 now. I believe that Topuria like looking at him, looking at this fight, keep an eye out literally for the striking, for the wrestling, even for BJJ. I mean, if he submits Colby Thicknesse, that is a statement. So yeah, keep an eye out for this guy. I mean, Ilya's brother, he's gonna have eyes on him. Now, finish of the night, I gotta give it to the big lug, Justin Tafa. I believe that this guy, he is gonna be able to get that finish. I just think with Taliesin, obviously the mannerisms he does have, his confidence in his chin, I think is going to be his undoing. I think Justin Tafa, just having the experience against, I mean, pretty much everyone in heavyweight is going to be taller than Justin Tafa, but having that experience there, having that kickboxing base, his composure is very good as well. And Taliesin doesn't have a ground game. So Taliesin's, I don't know if he's going to be able to take Justin Tafa down, especially in the difference when it comes to their heights. I mean, the center of gravity for Justin Tafa is so much lower, and if he's able to sprawl at all, and he's got good single leg defense, I don't see it going to the ground. And I mean, when it comes to the striking pedigree, I think Tafa can take his chin off. I hope you enjoyed today's UFC prediction video, and I hope you enjoy UFC 312. Now, if you want to see more MMA-based content, definitely check out the video on the screen, and please like, comment, subscribe. It goes a very long way for the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.